The New York Jets have officially announced their entire offensive coaching staff hires, and there is at least one big fish name that I think is worth getting excited about. We break that down and much, much more on this impromptu live edition of the Dylan Terraman Football Show. It starts right now.
Bring that here, all right? Go up there and press them and choke them out.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Believe in Jets podcast. I am your host, Dylan Terraman, where today we are reacting to the official hirings on the offensive side of the ball for the New York Jets. Just about 25-30 minutes ago, the team released a statement saying that they have filled their entire offensive coaching staff with 6 new hires. So we will break them all down, but there is one specifically who, if you've been a follower of this channel for a couple months before the season even ended, I called who the quarterback coach should be. Maybe the Jets are listening. We don't know, but the team has announced officially their offensive staff. So before we get to my graphic, the Jets announced 6 hires today officially. Thomas Markle, the offensive assistant/assistant quarterbacks coach. Bill Musgrave, the quarterbacks coach, longtime quarterbacks coach/offensive coordinator, most recently with the Cleveland Browns. Al Netter, the assistant offensive lines coach. Alfredo Roberts, the tight ends coach, who we learned about a couple days ago. Seth Ryan, son of Rex Ryan, of course, as the pass game coordinator. And then Matthew Sargent, the offensive assistant. So now that totals the Jets offensive staff out. They are fully staffed. There are going to be some changes, I assume, right? There's now 4 offensive assistants on the staff. I don't think they're going to go into the season with 4. And they've obviously added 2 new guys. So if you're looking on YouTube, the graphic that has bold names are brand new hires for the Jets. So you have Junior Taylor, Brandon Blaney, Thomas Markle, and Matthew Sargent as your offensive assistants. The last 2, Merkel and Sargent, were brand new hires. So that leads me to believe, and they already moved on from Walter Kuzmarek, as Aaron Wilson pointed out a couple days ago on Twitter. Perhaps they go into the season with 4 offensive assistants. I still think one of maybe Junior Taylor or Brandon Blaney does end up moving on from the Jets. Junior Taylor was just working at the Senior Bowl with the wide receiver position on the American team. So I would lean more in a guess, completely speculating, that Brandon Blaney might be the one they move on from. If not, they will likely carry all 4 assistants into the regular season. Then we have quarterbacks coach Bill Musgrave and the assistant quarterbacks coach Thomas Merkel. So Merkel is an assistant and quarterbacks assistant, so he's going to have a little bit of a expanded role compared to the other guys. But Bill Musgrave, we'll get to him in a second, but I am fired up about Bill Musgrave as the quarterbacks coach. They obviously retain running backs coach Nick McKissick-Luke and wide receivers coach Sean Jefferson. And then we have Alfredo Roberts, the tight ends coach, who we learned about a couple days ago. Tons of experience, I believe 22 years of experience coaching in the NFL. Spent the last 5 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that is also where they got a couple of their defensive coaches from, including Carl Dunbar, the defensive lines coach. So they're definitely picking off some good trees from coaching staffs. Obviously, Mike Tomlin no longer with the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of those assistant coaches were up for their contracts. So it was pretty obvious that they were going to find new destinations, and the Jets being able to land Carl Dunbar and Alfredo Roberts, bringing in a ton of experience, as well as guys like a Seth Ryan, a pass game coordinator who's, I believe, in his early 30s. I think he's even closer to my age at 31 years old. And he's only been in the coaching ranks at the NFL level for about 5 or 6 years, spent, I believe, the last 4 seasons with the Detroit Lions. So there's obviously some crossover between him and Aaron Glenn from their time in Detroit. And we talked about this the other day on one of my more recent videos. Frank Reich is in love with the Ben Johnson offense, and rightfully so. Ben Johnson is one of the most creative offensive play callers that has boomed onto the scene as an offensive coach in the last couple seasons. So Frank Reich bringing in a guy like Seth Ryan to help with the pass game concepts, taking over what would have been the demoted role for Tanner Engstrand. Obviously, he was OC. They were trying to demote him and hire Frank Reich. And then it got hairy, and it seemed like Engstrand just asked to leave the New York Jets, and completely fine. That's his own prerogative. He lands on his feet in Atlanta with Kevin Stefanski as the pass game coordinator. So that led me to believe that he was going to be our pass game coordinator had he stuck with New York. They obviously replaced him with a Seth Ryan. And again, he doesn't have a ton of experience, only 5 or 6 years. He was a QC coach. He was the assistant wide receivers coach, and then most recently, assistant tight ends coach for the Detroit Lions. But then you bring in a guy like Alfredo Roberts with 22 years of experience and Bill Musgrave with tons and tons of quality experience. This isn't just a guy who's been around the league and has been so. This is a guy who has 21 years of experience as an offensive coordinator or a quarterback's coach. The last 3 seasons, he was with the Cleveland Browns. So obviously, the quarterback situation there is murky at best. So that he's able to navigate rough waters. And despite who the Jets ultimately decide to bring in at quarterbacks, that Bill Musgrave is going to be able to work well with that quarterback. There is somebody who news came out about on Super Bowl Sunday morning, potentially leaving retirement and coming back into the NFL, that has worked with Bill Musgrave. And that name is Derek Carr. Now, I don't like Derek Carr. I'll be completely honest and blunt about it. I don't like Derek Carr. I feel like he is a very meh quarterback and has gotten a lot of his players concussed, namely Chris Olave with the New Orleans Saints. So I don't love the pairing of Bill Musgrave and Derek Carr, but I have used Derek Carr as evidence of okay, if Bill can make Derek Carr a Pro Bowl caliber player, right? He's one of 3 quarterbacks Bill Musgrave coached to a Pro Bowl level at the quarterback position. You have Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, who also won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he was a perennial Pro Bowler, and then Steve Berline in the late 90s. So I don't love Derek Carr, right? I don't love the prospects of getting a Derek Carr out of retirement, right? A Derek Carr coming from a bad Las Vegas Raiders team or a so-so New Orleans Saints team was standoffish. So now getting a Derek Carr off the couch to come be the quarterback for the Jets, it doesn't necessarily inspire a ton of confidence, but Bill Musgrave, the hire in a vacuum, absolutely fires me up. I talked about this guy on my channel going into the final week or final 2 weeks of the season. I talked about Bill Musgrave as somebody with tons of experience. Kevin Stefanski, there were rumors at the time that he was going to be let go of Cleveland. Obviously, he ended up getting let go in Cleveland, so they had a total staffing roster turnover, right? Obviously, even Jim Schwartz left after they hired Todd Monken as their head coach. So I thought it was a pipe dream to get a Bill Musgrave on this roster. I am so fired up for Bill to be the quarterback's coach, and that opens up avenues for them to go with a developmental veteran, right? Like a Malik Willis. I feel like maybe stylistically it's not somebody who Bill Musgrave has always worked with, but I feel like the options are not necessarily unlimited, but you can pick from a veteran that's already in the NFL, a struggling rookie, a brand new rookie, right? A very good high-end rookie like a Ty Simpson, obviously not a Fernando Mendoza. So there's so many options that we can do with a Bill Musgrave in this offense. And then you add in the fact that it's a very good blend of experienced guys, Frank Reich, Bill Musgrave, Alfredo Roberts, and then you have a good bit of youth as well with the Seth Ryans and some of these offensive assistants. I believe Merkel and Sargent are in their 30s. So you have a good blend, a very good mix of experience and youth on the coaching staff. maybe last year we swayed a little bit too close to a ton of first timers, right? Obviously, Tanner Engstrand being a first time OC and play caller. And now we're kind of pivoting and going a 180 to experienced route with tertiary hires that are going to be the youthful exuberance. And I was I don't know what the word is exactly, but I guess I'll just say negative about the prospects of a Frank Reich and a Wink Martindale to start this process. And this is why, guys, and I'm the perfect example of it. This is why we have to see the full staff come together before we can really cast our judgments. Because if we look at each hiring in a vacuum, there's going to be a lot of negatives, a lot of positives, right? These coaches, especially Frank Reich, not being in the NFL for the last couple seasons, you could turn very negative based on one specific hire, but now you can turn positive looking at the full body of work. I feel like everybody should like the Seth Ryan hire because, again, coming from that Ben Johnson offense, you want to mimic some of his pass game concepts. And although Frank Reich may be, quote unquote, a little stuck in his ways, the combination of him and Seth Ryan together creating pass concepts for this new modernized offense, that gives me more optimism than just a Frank Reich does alone. So certainly excited about this staff. I see 113 of you guys in the room. Please sound off in the comments about how you feel about this coaching staff. I will get to all of your questions. Super chats will cut the line, like Bino here. $2 super chat from Bino. I appreciate you, man. He says, DT, imagine that, an actual quarterback coach for quarterbacks. Yes. No more Charles London, right? And Charles London, although he was an experienced coach, he didn't have a ton of experience to lean on with his specific position, right? A former running back, he had running back coaching duties, switched over for the last half decade coaching some quarterbacks, but it felt like Geno Smith was the most, relevant name at quarterback that he even got a semblance of good play out of. So this is definitely a 360. Bill Musgrave, like I said, the 3 Pro Bowl quarterbacks he's coached, Steve Berline in the late 1990s, I believe it was 1998, Berline threw for 4,400 yards and 36 touchdowns that season. And in his entire career up to that point, he had never thrown for 3,200 yards or 18 touchdowns. So Bill Musgrave got the absolute most out of a guy like Berline. And then he had Matt Ryan, who obviously is a very good player on his own. And then he got Derek Carr to play better than expected at some stops in his career. So definitely excited about Bill and Seth Ryan. Obviously, the assistant hires, the offensive assistants specifically, are very tertiary, and they're not going to have a ton of value in their name. But it does feel like reading through some of these blurbs on the Jets website about guys like Al Netter, the offensive assistant lines coach. He comes from Stanford, where he coached the offensive line. So obviously a connection with Frank Reich there. And then Thomas Merkel last year was the quarterback's coach for Stanford. So now you're seeing 3 ex-Stanford guys, Reich himself, and then 2 assistant coaches coming with him from the Stanford Cardinals. So we'll go through a mock draft that I did a couple days ago that included a Stanford guy going to the Jets in round 4, which I think would be a pretty solid addition during the draft. But yeah, this makes me really happy. And like I said, I was pretty negative about it, and Keep It Simple says it right here. DT, is that optimism in your voice? It certainly is. And that's not to say that this is going to turn the Jets around and make them some fantastic offensive operation. But you can read through the tea leaves now and say, hey, there were things to be excited about last year with Engstrand. Don't get me wrong. But everybody felt like they knew right away with Charles London that was not the quarterback coaching hire that the Jets actually needed. They needed a guy who was going to make Justin Fields into a better drop back passer, play with timing, get to the back of his drop, and throw the football. Bill Musgrave is going to do that with whoever the quarterback is. And JD Surf City says odds of tie at 2 has now reached 49%. I don't know if I'd go that high, JD, but you guys know I'm a fan of Ty Simpson. If they ended up going that route at the number 2 overall pick, sure, it's a bit of a reach, but I think it's justifiable considering it's a quarterback, the value that the quarterback brings to your team. And if you think he's going to be a top 16, top 14 passer in his first 3 to 4 seasons on his rookie deal, you absolutely take that swing. And now you feel a little bit more comfortable with the pieces in place around Ty Simpson to make that happen. Jose says, what about Watson? I hope that they don't go after him. One, his contract is absolutely egregious. And two, I was an advocate of Deshaun Watson up until the allegations started coming out about him. And I understand we're a few years removed from that. I just don't think the combination of the media circus that Deshaun Watson would bring to New York, as well as the drop off in his play. He came in, I think it was last year, for Cleveland, and he just looked awful. He looked like he forgot how to play football for much of that season, and he just was making errors that he never made before as an NFL pro or even at his time in Clemson. So I feel like it's just maybe we're a little bit too far gone with the Deshaun Watson thing. And if the allegations weren't there, sure, maybe you could. But I feel like that whole character side of it with Deshaun Watson leads me to say I would rather stay away from that. Pat says, DT, thanks for the insight. Go Jets. Absolutely. 140 of you guys in the room. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you are new to the channel. We are approaching 1,550 subscribers. So thank you all so much for that. The GM, June. What's up, June? I appreciate you tuning in. He says, I'm optimistic with Musgrave. Wow, I'm actually excited. Yes. And again, this isn't to say the season is back on and the Jets are going to do the Patriots thing and go from 3 to 4 wins to the Super Bowl. But this is, if this was the year one staff under Aaron Glenn, the perception of the head coach of the New York Jets would be completely different. And obviously that's not the case, right? The year one coaching staff, the roster, it was all very bad. But this year we're doing some self-reflection, right? He took a couple weeks off in the season, and maybe that was part of this slow process that a lot of us have been complaining about. Stop trickling in the hires and get the staff on board. Well, Aaron Glenn has gotten the staff on board, and so far it has been really exciting. Obviously, this is more of an offensive episode, but Carl Dunbar on the defensive line hire, that is amazing to me. A former Jets coach back in the, I think it was 2012 to 2014. He was the one that coached the Sons of Anarchy, right? Sheldon Richardson, Muhammad Wilkerson, Damon Harrison. And that was one of the last times that our defensive line felt super, super powerful up until the Saleh era for, that, half a season and a half where they were really good defensive line play. And then they got rid of JFM and everything kind of crumbled thanks to Joe Douglas and the moves that he made. But Carl Dunbar on the defensive side of the ball is an inspiring hire as well. So we can't just focus solely on offense. Some of the defensive hires are really, really quality too. Light Grenade says, didn't Musgrave also coach Vic and Matt Schaub? Yes. So that was Bill Musgrave as well. I have a list of some of the notable coaches or quarterbacks he worked with. Vic, Schaub, Byron Leftwich, Jeff George, Mark Brunell. And Brunell was somebody who I mentioned as like, oh, that could be a good coaching hire for the quarterbacks coming from Detroit as well. Nick Foles and Mark Sanchez. So some pretty notable names there for Bill Musgrave in his career. So it's not like he's just working with like elite talent at quarterback and just, going along for the ride. He's kind of building some of these guys up to be mediocre to above average compared to expectations, right? So I think Bill Musgrave is definitely a floor raiser in terms of a coach with the quarterback position. And now I feel much more confident if the Jets were to pick, let's just say, Ty Simpson at 16. If they were to go Ty Simpson at 16, right, you obviously would need a veteran quarterback in the room. And I've kind of said my hot take is Frank Reich, Kirk Cousins, and Ty Simpson. Honestly, I don't even care if they trade up for Ty Simpson. Get a couple picks ahead. You got to jump ahead of maybe the Los Angeles Rams at 13, who are sitting there with the Atlanta Falcons pick, which the Atlanta Falcons desperately need a first-round pick after all the things that have gone on with their team in the news lately. But the Rams at 13 is where I say you have to either trade up to or trade up in front of. So, maybe the Dallas Cowboys at 12, if Sonny Styles is gone, they want to move back a couple picks, get some more assets, even though they still have 2 first-round picks. But I'm cool with a Ty Simpson in a trade up. Oscar says, Dylan, I apologize for being off topic, but I have to ask your thoughts on the Gary Charles Rumble the other day. To be completely honest, I don't know whose show this was on or when it happened. I have been not tuned out of Jets content since I got back from Mobile, but I have been in such a catch up grind mode of content and making my own content, getting all my draft stuff together, that I haven't been listening to a ton of Jets content. So if this was like on Jake's show or something, I probably missed it, to be completely honest. I would love to go back and watch it. I think Gary and Charles, I feel like Gary was always nice to Charles, so to have them rumble seems a little bit silly. Oscar with a follow-up with a topical question. He says, any chance of Banks at 16? If he's there, I would love for that to be one of the considered options for the Jets at 16. Do I know if he'll be there at 16? That's hard to say. Like, he can go in the top 10, right? The Kansas City Chiefs are picking 9 or 10, I believe. So there's a world where, them at 9 or the Bengals at 10, they pick a guy like Caleb Banks. He's ass and legs to a T. He's one of my favorite ass and legs candidates of this entire season. And then you throw on the tape and he's so explosive. And obviously there's some change of direction concerns just due to his sheer size. But yeah, I would think that if he was there at 16, he should absolutely be in consideration for the New York Jets. Like Grenade says, you're talking about Sam Roush from Stanford. I am. He said, yeah, definitely need the big blocking tight end on this roster for once. Dallin Bentley is that dude for me. I'll have to go look at Bentley. I'm not sure. I don't even know where he plays school, to be completely honest, or went to school, excuse me. But yeah, the big blocking tight end types, like, I'm not saying Sam Roush is Darnell Washington, because there's not many tight ends that look like Darnell Washington, but we need that element of it. And Jeremy Ruckert is a okay blocker, but he's not a fantastic blocker. So yeah, we definitely need that element in the room for sure. And then you have the obvious Stanford connection. So Bino with another $2. I appreciate it. He says, if Glenn went Watson after Fields, fire him now. Yeah, that would be sketchy, right? To get your quarterback pick egregiously wrong with Justin Fields, and then you go and you get a Deshaun Watson. I don't know. I feel like that's pretty tough. That's a tough pill to swallow. Jesus Jerry complimenting my eyes. I appreciate that. Do they look blue today? Yeah, it's because I'm wearing gray. Whenever I wear gray, they turn blue. I appreciate it, Jesus. Somebody said I skipped their comment, so now I got to go all the way back to the top and see whose comment I skipped. It was not a super chat, so I missed it. Okay, Vinny, I found it. I think we're still wasting our time. The staff is not leading us to the promised land. I want a real head coach in 2027 that has worked with quarterbacks when Arch comes out. Okay, sure. I agree with, part of it. I don't think we're wasting our time. Wasting our time, to me, in my opinion, would be if they just sat on their hands, they didn't make any really good hires. Like, there was no Bill Musgrave, no Carl Dunbar, even a Seth Ryan, right? Like, they're trying. Like, they have to try, because no Jets fan, including you, Vinny, no Jets fan, and we say this now on February 10th, that we're okay sitting through a 1-15, 2-14 season if that means we get the number 1 overall pick. I guarantee you, 2 or 3 weeks into September, we are all going to be bitching that the Jets are getting blown out and they're 0-3 and their playoff hopes are dead and gone. Like, we know the recycle graph, right? If you remember, like, I think it's NYJ Matt, he always posts the timeline of the Jets off season or the Jets season. And we're at the point where it's like, it's easier to be negative than positive and just say, yeah, let's just go for 2027. I promise you, Vinny, nobody in the building is thinking that way, and they shouldn't be. Nobody in this role should be thinking, oh yeah, let's just throw away another season and who cares if we get fired. No, quite frankly, I completely disagree with that. And if this offensive coaching staff had to work with an Arch Manning, I would be very, very intrigued by that. Like, I think Arch Manning would be a great fit for a Frank Reich offense. Not to say that these guys deserve to, have lifetime contracts with the Jets, but I would just significantly push back that we're wasting our time. Yes, they probably won't lead us to the promised land and do the Patriots 3-14 or whatever they were last year to the Super Bowl. Is there any coach that can do that with the New York Jets? Quite frankly, no. Like, even if we got a Mike Tomlin, a John Harbaugh, any of the even the Kevin Stefanskis of the world. I don't think that they're going to lead us to the promised land just on name value alone. The Jets have so much that they need to work out that I actually appreciate what they're doing. And that's not me being a homer. That's just me not going to say we need to give up on the 2026 season already. Let's see. Yeah, JD, he's still settling lawsuits. Like, there's a lot to iron out with the Deshaun Watson thing, and I'm just not a fan of it. What up, Rich? I appreciate you tuning in. DT with all the emojis. Let's see. Oscar says, I do think they should utilize as much of their cap as possible and sign the best quality free agents, the ones who want to be here anyways. Yeah, that's certainly going to be the thing. And we can get into a couple of the free agents. I know Connor Hughes and Zach Rosenblatt did their Jets final drive, and they talked about guys like Alex Anzalone, the linebacker from Detroit, and then Amik Robertson, the cornerback / nickel from Detroit, who saw a significant drop-off in his play once Aaron Glenn left in 2025. My only pushback to that is, do we need a ton of guys from that Lions team specifically to turn this around? No. And you want to get the best quality free agents as possible. So for everybody saying like Alex Anzalone is such an easy fit with the Aaron Glenn defense, my only pushback, in terms of another player at that position, why not try for a Demario Davis, right? Third time's a charm. Let's get that guy back in the green and white for a third time. And it seems like he's going to be leaving New Orleans in free agency. He definitely wants to test free agency. So it does seem like that could be another viable option. So I don't want to put too many eggs in the basket of we have to go get X Aaron Glenn guys. But if we are going to get one, why not Demario Davis? I feel like if he was willing to come back to the Jets, then that would definitely be something I would want them to make work. Like Grenade says, are we sure the Rams really want to grab a quarterback? No, I'm not saying that they absolutely do, right? Matt Stafford came out at the NFL Awards when he accepted his MVP trophy and said, I am coming back next year. My daughters get to watch me kick ass, or whatever the quote was. And I thought that was a really cool moment, obviously announcing that he was back. McVay was fired up. Kyron Williams was fired up as they were in attendance of the NFL Awards. But then again, good teams think one season ahead in terms of roster construction. Obviously, we know next year's quarterback class is almost guaranteed to be better than this year, considering it's Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, and then a big drop-off to like Garrett Nussmeier, Trinidad Chambliss, who's still begging to go back to Ole Miss for some reason. So it's not a for sure thing, but that's going to be Darren Muji's job, is ultimately to call around the league, say, hey, what are you guys interested in doing with this pick? And they're not going to discuss names specifically, but if Muji gets wind that the Rams do want a quarterback, and specifically Ty Simpson, then yes, then they will have to go up and jump the Rams. If not, maybe they can sit at 16 and get the guy to fall in their lap like Ty Simpson. So no, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Let's see what else we got. Keep it simple. Says, say Muji goes quarterback this year and next year. Wouldn't that be the smart play? In my opinion, yes. I get it. You're wasting a draft pick taking Ty Simpson this year if he flames out and you have to take one next year. But at the same time, at what level, like, what does Ty Simpson have to look like in 2026 for the Jets for him to not even be tradable, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's people still out there in the world today that say the Jets should trade for Shedeur Sanders, right? Can Ty Simpson play at the level of Shedeur Sanders or like just slightly below it and still have trade value going into 2027? Absolutely. So yes, I think the smart play would be to take a quarterback basically in every draft. I believe it was Ted Thompson of the Green Bay Packers and many other GMs and high-ranking officials in the league have said this, but you take a quarterback in every draft. It doesn't have to be with your first-round selection, but in this case specifically, the Jets pick 44, and then they don't pick till 103. If they don't have a quarterback at 44 worth taking, right, I think Garrett Nussmeier would be a complete reach at 44. So would Trinidad Chambliss. Those guys probably don't make it to 103. So do you just draft a Cade Klubnik or a Drew Aller on day 3 and like chalk it up as like that's our quarterback swing. Not necessarily in this draft. I would try to go for the Ty Simpsons of the world. And if he's not there on the board and they don't want to trade up for him, so be it. You take a defensive tackle, or you take a wide receiver, or you could even take a safety, right? Emmanuel McNeil Warren, or Warren McNeil. You could take a safety at 16 and it's okay. But yes, the smart play would be to take a quarterback in every single draft if you're Darren Muji. Like Grenade says, I like Hunter or McDonald over Banks, even Big Citrus. Okay, so that's an interesting one. I've done the Caden McDonald film because I watched all the Ohio State defenders, and he certainly has his moments. And I love the fact that he does like it's not just eye black. It's like his entire forehead to chin is just all eye black. So it's really a cool look for Caden McDonald there. I would say, okay, I haven't done the Dominique Orange, the Big Citrus film review, and I only watched Lee Hunter at the Senior Bowl. If I was just trying to quickly rank them for you, like Grenade, I would say it's Banks, Hunter, McDonald, Citrus. That's the order I think I would go in. I think Banks to me is still number 1. He's probably going to end up as like a top 15, top 20 fringe guy for me on my big board. Let's see where I have him right now. And obviously it's still a work in progress as we are still a couple weeks out from the combine. But I believe I have Caleb Banks fairly high on my big board. Yeah, Caleb Banks is 14. And then I have Peter Woods at 16, Caden McDonald at 17. And like I said, I haven't watched Lee Hunter other than the week in Mobile. And then Dominique Orange I'll get to at some point. But I think Dominique Orange is closer to a day 2 pick where, I can see a path to Hunter, McDonald, and Banks all being first-round selections. Couple more super chats I see popping in. Kyle Clifton, $10. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kyle. He said, DT, did you hear about the blind working girl? You got to hand it to her. That's good. That's a good one. I appreciate you, Kyle, for injecting some humor into the pod. I would like to know more about her. Jose with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. He says, DT, draft 4 defensive players in the first and second rounds and go offense in free agency. How about this one, Jose? Go defense in free agency, and then 3 of your first 4 draft picks are on offense. I think I personally would like that better. I'm more of a fan of paying defensive players slightly more than paying offensive players a lot more, right? Like, let's just use running back for an example. There's a handful of good running backs that are going to be available. If the Jets don't retain Breece Hall, like, what does the contract look like for Kenneth Walker III, coming off a Super Bowl MVP where he realistically should have had 170 plus yards and a touchdown? Obviously, he ends with like a $130 and no scores because the one was called back on a hold. So I don't know if I love this approach, Jose. Would I hate it if they did it? Probably not, right? I feel like there's some decent offensive players in free agency, but I'd rather go get a defensive tackle, a linebacker, a safety in free agency, and then draft a wide receiver, a guard, maybe a quarterback, right? Like that's my thinking here is I would rather draft the upside on offense and pay for the defense. But I think there's multiple ways to do it. And that's why I think the offseason is one of one for the NFL. It's not like any other offseason either. Like the NFL offseason, it just reigns supreme compared to like baseball and basketball and all the other sports, like even hockey. Like those moves and those news dumps don't move the needle like the NFL does. So I'm really excited for this offseason, and we're only a couple days in. Obviously, we've been in off-season mode since Halloween or mid-October. So we're well versed in what's going to happen this offseason, but there are just so many different avenues they can explore, and that makes me the most excited. Jesus Jerry says, honestly, Dylan, in your opinion, next year is also a throne year. I'm not going to operate that way. Like, I get it. It's easy to say they're not going to do anything of like relevance, right? The Jets aren't going to win the Super Bowl. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, but can they get to 8 wins? And Aaron Glenn proves to us that, like, maybe we should have been holding on to the rope and we shouldn't have let go. Yeah, I think that that's still a possibility. I don't think it's a highly likely possibility, but I can't say that this is just a throne season. Like, that's just, it's too hard. It's February. Like, we can't do that. We can't do that yet. Bino, $2 again. I appreciate you, man. He says, DT, that call saved my bet. Seattle in the under. Yeah, the under was 45.5. And the final score was 29-13. So yeah, it was 42 points. Damn. That's crazy. Yeah, that would have been a rough way for you to lose your bet, because I honestly thought at one point Kenneth Walker was going to fall down and not score on the play and just wind the clock down and do, the typical like clock management thing. And then you find out after the game that Kenneth Walker's father was in attendance for this game, and that was the first game his dad has ever attended in, I believe, his entire football career, both college and pros. His dad is not a fan of crowds and crowd noise and things like that. So perhaps there was an element of Kenneth Walker trying to score, for his father in the stands. But I'm glad that you were able to win some money betting on that game. I jokingly, I told my boss, I said, hey, $100 on the coin toss. I'll take tails. And my boss laughed and he's like, no, we can't bet like that. We can't. And then heads came out and he looked at me right away and I was like, see, should have made the bet. But he was a Seahawks fan and he was just excited for the game. So he didn't want to lose money and he would have ended up gaining $100. But yeah, unfortunately, we can't bet down here in South Carolina. The weather is beautiful. I've told people before, between Christmas and Super Bowl, you can't wear shorts. You got to wear pants around here. But the Super Bowl just ended. It's the Tuesday after, and it's 70 degrees outside. But we can't bet. We can't make any bets on sports. And gardening is highly frowned upon in South Carolina. Jets Johnny in the chat. Appreciate you, bro. What's up? Clifton says, Lee Hunter is a real riser. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, he is. At the Senior Bowl, I immediately pointed out to Dom C. I was like, Dom, who the hell is number 10 on that defensive line group? Number 10 is my favorite number, so like I'm naturally going to be gravitating towards the guys with my favorite numbers. But you see a guy wearing 10, and he wore number 2 during the season, and he's just as wide as like a doorway. And it's like, who the hell is this guy? And it's Lee Hunter. And then he ends up having a monstrous week in Mobile. I think he's just going to kill the entire pre-draft process. And if he's a top 20 pick, like my hot take on Lee Hunter is he could be gone before the Jets even pick at 16. Like there is so much unknown in this draft. Even, I don't think Fernando Mendoza is a 100% lock. I'd say it's 97, 98%, of course, but there is just so much uncertainty in this draft class specifically that it could play into the Jets' favor with somebody really talented falling at 16. Whether it's like a Mekhi Lemon or a Carnell Tate, again, probably unlikely. A Caleb Banks could fall to 14 or 16. Jermod McCoy or Mansour Delane, the cornerbacks, I don't think they should go that route, but there's definitely going to be somebody within 13 to 16 that it's like, shit, do the Jets need to call up and say, hey, we'll give you a couple picks to move up and get a guy like that? So it's gonna be an interesting process. But yeah, certainly a riser. Johnny Boy, DT, what's up, man? I appreciate you hopping in. I will be joining Johnny Boy and Snowball on Friday at 7:30 on their channel. So definitely come check us out. I believe Green Bean will be on with us as well. So really excited. I have not talked to Green Bean in a couple months on a podcast. So really excited to get in with the Jets Worldwide crew. Shout out to you, Johnny Boy. I see your comment about Carson Beck. And while I probably agree with it, I think the Carson Beck stuff is crazy. I see Jets Johnny in here doing the Carson Beck thing. I can't get with it, bro. I can't get with it. I don't think the Jets need the third island boy coming to New York and trying to save us. He's got a ton of issues, in my opinion. He could throw the ball really well at times, and then there's times where I'm just like, that's like undraftable stuff you're doing right there. Light Grenade says he doesn't like Banks because of the foot injuries. I'm not fully versed in everybody's injury history, but yes, a 340 plus pounder with foot injuries definitely would bring in some trust issues. Stay healthy with tiny bones. That's funny because usually when guys are big, you're like, oh, he's big boned, even though it's not a thing. So to say he has tiny bones is actually hilarious. Bino, Amari Washington is a freak. I believe he went back to school, unfortunately, or else he would have been definitely in the realm of possibility for the Jets in the top 44. Sports 0017, defense wins you championships, offense takes you there. Absolutely. That's why I think you got to take the swing at quarterback if you have the chance. Now, Ty Simpson's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I totally get that. We have Welcome to Something saying Drew Aller, take a late round flyer on Drew Aller. To me, because the Jets don't have any quarterback on their roster, I would prefer the higher end swing with a Ty Simpson. If they had a quarterback in place where it's like, okay, for the next maybe 1 to 2 year bridge, 3-year plan, then you go get a Drew Aller knowing that he's going to be a backup. Whoever they draft this year, if it's a quarterback, we can probably count on them starting 2 to 3 games. Do I want Drew Aller suiting up, throwing regular season live passes for the New York Jets in 2026? Absolutely not. So that's my issue with the late round flyer, is they're going to have to play. We saw an undrafted free agent play in Brady Cook. And then we saw Brady Cook wearing a number 10 white jersey for the Patriots on Sunday in Drake May. Crazy. Let's see. Bigfoot Mike says Ty Simpson and Jordan Tyson are expected to be selected by the Jets in the first round, according to Walter Football. If the Jets give Simpson a starter grade. Yeah, so that's my whole thing. My feelings completely aside of Ty Simpson, it's all a moot point if the Jets don't think he's worth it. Now, if the Jets think he's going to be a top half of the league passer in 3 to 4 seasons before they have to give him that fully guaranteed 5th-year option, that's worth taking a swing on, in my opinion. You can go through the list of quarterbacks, and after about like 9, maybe 11, it gets really murky. Like, put in the comments who you guys think is the 16th best quarterback in the league today. And I feel like 98% of the fan base should want that style or that type of quarterback production for the New York Jets. So if they think Ty Simpson is going to be that guy, yeah, I absolutely do the swing. Yeah, like Grenade, that about Kenneth's dad, it's got to suck. The social anxiety and like that's what your son has to do is like play in crowded arenas. Yeah, it's definitely not ideal if you're, I guess, Kenneth Walker II. Kyle coming in with more jokes. I picked up a one-legged hitchhiker yesterday. I said, hop in. And then you took her to her managerial job at IHOP, right? All right. That was my corny joke of the day. Appreciate you, Kyle. Let's see. Chris B, the most optimistic Jets fan in the chat. Appreciate you. He says, hey, Dylan, hope all is well. Go Jets. Love you all. Like, support, subscribe to the channel. Absolutely. Listen to Chris. Make Chris happier. Like this video. Subscribe if you are new. We are approaching 1,550 subs, so cannot thank you guys enough helping me build this community out and really growing this thing in the first 9 or 10 months or so. It hasn't even been a full year, and I think the feedback has been extremely positive. keep it simple. DT, who are your sleepers in the secondary? So I assume this is a draft-related question. I don't think he's a sleeper anymore, but Bud Clark, man, he had such a good Senior Bowl week. There was one practice alone where he created 3 turnovers. I believe 1 was a fumble and 2 were interceptions. So Bud Clark, while he's probably not necessarily a sleeper anymore, he's like that day 3, late day 2 range, like fringe top 100 that I think would be a really cool fit for the Jets. A bit of an older prospect as well. So you think about Aaron Glenn, and they drafted Malachi Moore out of Alabama, a 5-year player, and now you have Bud Clark and Malachi Moore, who are rookie second-year guys, but they come with a ton of experience behind them. So I would say Bud Clark for sure. Michael Taft, the safety from Texas, I also really enjoyed during my week of Senior Bowl. I like watching Texas, so I frequent them quite a bit during their regular season, just in real time, not on all 22. But Taft is definitely somebody that I like. I believe he's in this draft class. Takario Davis, the cornerback from Washington. Now, the only reason I'm saying his name is because he was mocked to the Jets in a way too early mock draft a year or 2 ago to the Jets in the first round. So I was like, okay, who is this guy? Cornerback from Washington, and maybe he's not the fit that he could have been under the Salo regime, but I would say him as a sleeper. Kamari Ramsey, the safety from USC, I've talked about quite a bit on the channel. I think he's another guy like 75, top 75 range. So the Jets don't pick in that range, but can they either trade down from 33 and gain some picks between 44 and 103 to get a guy like that? Davison Igbinosun, the corner from Ohio State, he's a little slender build, but I thought he had some really good practices in Senior Bowl. And again, watching the Ohio State defense ad nauseum, when you're watching like Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Caden McDonald, like your eyes are naturally going to gravitate to even the Davison Igbinosons of the world. So I would say him as well at cornerback. And then everybody else is pretty much like a known commodity, right? Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, Jermod McCoy, who missed all year with the ACL, but he's probably going to be gone before the Jets even pick at 16. Let's see, VJ Payne. He was another guy from the Senior Bowl that I thought did fairly well from Kansas State. So yeah, there's definitely a handful of sleepers. I can't say for sure who my sleepers are, but that's at least a couple names for you on day 3. Boss girl. So 8 is my second number that I look for. So yeah, Arvell Reese definitely catches my attention with the 8, even though when he wears like the crop top, it kind of looks like number 0, which I think is really hard to tell when he's standing next to like a Sonny Styles and he's 8 with a bunched up jersey. And then there's number 0 standing right next to him. Let's see what else we got. Jets Johnny likes my Carson Beck comparison to the Third Island boy. Absolutely. 175 you guys in the room. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Not going to be a terribly long episode, but I did want to come on and talk about the Jets' new hires. If you have not been here since the beginning, the Jets announced 6 new hires today. Thomas Merkel, offensive assistant / assistant quarterbacks. Matthew Sargent, offensive assistant. Bill Musgrave, the quarterback's coach. Al Netter, the assistant offensive line coach. And Alfredo Roberts, the tight ends coach. The main one here is Bill Musgrave for me. I think it was week 17. I did a video saying, Aaron Glenn could be on the hot seat, but also Kevin Stefanski could be on the hot seat and look to, bring in a Bill Musgrave type at quarterbacks coach because it's the complete opposite, a complete 180 of what Charles London was for the Jets last year at that coaching spot. So really intrigued by a lot of these offensive hires. Obviously, the offensive assistants are pretty tertiary, but Reich, Ryan, and Musgrave, to me, is really a great threesome or trio to put around your quarterback. Alfredo Roberts comes with 22 years of experience as well. So really excited for the offensive staff and now looking forward to see how the defensive side of the ball plays out. Oscar says, Dylan, I know running back isn't a priority this draft, but how would you feel about grabbing either Katron Allen or Josh McCray as a replacement? Okay, so I'm not completely familiar with McCray, so I'll have to get back to you on that one. But Katron Allen specifically, he was at Senior Bowl. Both him and Singleton were at Senior Bowl, right? That's the other Penn State running back. And Katron Allen, he was like talked of as like this really, really high-end runner with the ball. And then throughout the week of practice, he showed me he can pass protect very, very well. And then he can also be a pass catcher. So he's kind of changed my opinion about him, as now he's like an all-around, do everything, three-phase kind of back. Whereas before I was like, okay, well, if he's just mainly a runner, like I feel like we kind of have that in a Braylon Allen. So I like Katron Allen for sure. I don't know if he would be like a great one-to-one replacement for Breece Hall, but you add in the fact that you're getting Braylon back healthy, Isaiah Davis still in the room. If they added another free agent to the room, maybe that makes sense. Like, could they add a David Montgomery, draft a Katron Allen, get Braylon back healthy after a couple weeks, and then Isaiah Davis doing his thing on offense and special teams? Yeah, I can see that being a really nice room. Jets Johnny, this is not talked about nearly enough. If there was a quarterback that fits the Raiders, Shanahan, Kubiak, that entire coaching tree, I think it's Ty Simpson. The way that he maneuvers in the pocket is very subtle, but it's very good. He's able to like move a yard off his spot, get away from the pressure, feel the pressure instead of having to look down at the pressure. He senses it coming off his shoulder. He dips his right shoulder and rips it into the hole shot. So there is a lot of elements stylistically that could make me say, hey, the Raiders should consider a Ty Simpson. But yeah, I do think it's 97, 98% Mendoza. I would actually like if the Raiders went out and got like a Malik Willis in free agency, because then that would lessen the chance of them taking a quarterback altogether. And then they take a guy like Arvell Reese at number 1 and they leave, the Jets to pick whichever quarterback they want. William, I'm not familiar with that quarterback prospect, Jack Strand. Let me look him up real quick and we'll see what we can find on him. MSU Moorhead, 6'5", 240, Wisconsin native. So is this Minnesota State? That's where he plays? Okay. He was there for 4 seasons. I got no notes on him. Full-time starter in 2023, appeared in 11 games. Jeez, 3,900 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 11 picks. I mean, it's Division II, so like you take that with a grain of salt, but then he followed it up his senior year with 42 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. So, yeah, he definitely has production through the roof. 42 games, 13,160 yards, and 126 touchdowns. That's crazy. His 13,000, this is a weird sentence on his Wikipedia page. His 13,000 passing yards equals over 7 miles. Great. Like, okay, thanks for that. But yeah, highly productive player at the quarterback position. This is more of like the 6th round, 7th round UDFA swing that I would prefer them to take, as opposed to like wasting a 5th round pick on Drew Aller or Cade Klubnik. Let's see what else we got. ISU. DT, how do you feel about Field Yates saying Luke Altmaier was the most consistent quarterback at Mobile and the guy he would draft? I believe he also mentioned long-term backup. Luke was fine. I believe he's undersized, like most of these quarterbacks are. Yeah, 6'1", 210 pounds, 9-inch hands. So he's just barely getting over that threshold, right? Yeah, I would say long-term backup. Now, in terms of most consistent in Mobile, perhaps I can't really dispute. That's the funny part about Senior Bowl specifically every year I go. Unless there's a guy that like really, really stands out, everybody's gonna have a different opinion on who looked better and who was the best in that week. I thought, the first 2 days at least, Taylon Green was the best quarterback of the six that were there. You had Luke Altmaier, Taylon Green, Garrett Nussmeier, Diego Pavia, Cole Payton, Sawyer Robertson. And then, coming out of the third day, a lot of people were back on the Garrett Nussmeier train, and then he ends up starting in the game. So the mixed opinions on quarterbacks is just par for the course here with the draft process. But yeah, I would say Luke is more of a long-term backup than really anything else. Let's see. Johnny Boy with a $2 super chat. I appreciate you, man. He says, thoughts on Joe Hendry. All right. Well, at least you guys are giving me names that I know are real people. Like, no one's like, what do you think about Knoble? Right? Oh, but what the hell? Johnny Boy, what the hell are you doing to me, man? Scottish professional wrestler. Is this who you're who you're talking about, Johnny Boy? And I know you're a wrestling guy, so I hope it's not. I hope you're not trolling me here. I feel like you are, though. Yeah, 6'2", 231. That's exact measurables. You, Johnny Boy. I'm glad you made me look for $2. Thank you. I appreciate you, bro. That's crazy work. That's fine. When I come on your show on Friday, I'm gonna have 3 scouting reports written on guys that don't even exist now, Johnny Boy. This is what you've started. You've poked the bear. 2120 Bricks says, what part of South Carolina are you from? I am from the upstate, Greenville, Spartanburg area. Not at all close to the coast. So if you're thinking Myrtle Beach or Charleston, complete opposite end. We're in the northwest corner. I'm less than an hour away from Clemson, and I'm about an hour away from Columbia. Keep it simple. That would be very Raiders to take Simpson over Mendoza, but I would not complain one bit. Yeah, you guys are funny. Apparently, you guys are wrestling watchers. I can't watch wrestling anymore. My brother kind of ruined it for me. He's like, watch, every time they throw a punch, they change the camera angle. And I lost all interest. I was like, dang, as a kid, you like think it's real and everything, but it's not. Keep it simple. I know this is fake. I know Hingle McCringleberry is not real. Good try, though. Jets Johnny did get me. Damn, man, I'm actually upset. I am not a certified ball knower, thanks to Jets Johnny. All right, let's see what else we got in the comments. All right, I don't see a ton of comments popping up right now, so what we will transition into is something that I wanted to talk about in a separate video, but while I'm live and I have 180 you guys in the room, hit the like button, subscribe if you are new. I had somebody reach out to me on Discord about making graphics for me in terms of like mock drafts and things like that. So I have a graphic here from my buddy Eric that he put together. Shout out to you. Not sure if you're in the chat, but if you are, you can comment away and I'll make sure to give you your proper shout out. But my friend Eric hit me up on Discord and he made a cool graphic for me. So this is going to be the new graphic template for my mock drafts. And I did the mock draft, and we'll call it mock draft 2.0 because I've already done one that I reviewed on the channel. But this mock draft is brand new to the channel, so you guys are seeing it for the first time with this very cool graphic, Draft Talk with DT, as you guys know. And this one is definitely against the grain. I anticipate a ton of pushback, and that's okay. As we go through the picks, I'll explain my reasoning for the selections. I do need to start off by saying I used PFF's mock draft simulator. So PFF, PFN, I think mock draft database. There's a ton of different outlets you can use. PFF is just the one I seem to like the most. But I do want to encourage people not to get too caught up in the mock draft databases and things of that nature. Like where those rankings are rooted from is like the consensus of PFF. A lot of things are going to look very different compared to that mock. So there's going to be some unrealistic ones in here, maybe some more realistic ones. But I went Arvell Reese, number 2, the edge linebacker from Ohio State. You bring in a Carl Dunbar 3-4 system. I think the stock is up on the chances of Arvell Reese or David Bailey from Texas Tech being the pick at 2. We've talked at length about the edge rushers on this channel, so I don't want to waste everybody's time. Moving right into 16, I have them taking Vega Lawane, the guard from Penn State. And I already saw a comment saying that's ISU says we're not taking a guard at 16. You never know, man. They might not re-sign John Simpson. They could get priced out of an AVT. I'm not saying I would fully support this, but if they are going to go guard, I think in this mock draft specifically, I wasn't going to reach for the next best wide receiver, who probably was Casey Concepcion or Denzel Boston. I didn't feel like there was obviously I took edge, so I'm not going to like double up with an edge at 16. I didn't think there was a cornerback worth taking at 16. Mansour and Jermod McCoy were gone. So I said, hey, this might be the offseason where they don't retain their offensive line talent and they go to replenish in the draft. And now you have Vega Lawane, a second Penn State guy on the line next to Olu Fashanu as your left tackle, left guard combination for hopefully the next half a decade. Then this is where it starts to get where even I pushed back on the PFF mock, but I wanted to, go with the board, put together the best team I possibly could. And at 33, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety from Toledo, was there. If you told me that he, and even Lee Hunter, who we'll get into next, if you told me that these guys were taken in the first round, I would not be surprised. So I kind of cheesed the mock draft simulator in this case by taking guys that probably won't be there at 33 and 44, but if they came away with just this sheer talent in that the top 4 picks, I would be blown away, quite frankly. So Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, supposed to be a Senior Bowl guy, ended up not showing up. But there was, I think I watched one game cut up of him, red zone play. Receiver is going over the middle. As he's catching it, McNeil-Warren puts a shoulder right on him, separates ball from man, and absolutely decleats the receiver. Kind of, made me sit up in my seat a little bit. I was perked up a little bit like, whoa, okay, let's see what we got here. And safety is an extreme need for the Jets. Perhaps they don't overspend in free agency on one, even though there's a guy like Cam Curl. There's a couple other safeties out there that I think are fine, reasonable additions in free agency. But in this one, they take Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at 33. At 44, and again, I don't think he might actually be here, but Lee Hunter was still on the board, defensive tackle, Texas Tech. Again, if he was gone in the first round, I'm not surprised. Maybe I would have gone with a completely different position, but Lee Hunter at 44, you plug that guy into the middle of our defensive front, you add Arvell Reese to that front, you now have Reese, McDonald, Jermaine on the edges, and you have Hunter, Phillips, and Briggs in the middle. That's a really good 6-man defensive line rotation that allows you to be multiple. You can have some 3-4 looks, some 4-3 looks. You can really get creative and multiple in your defensive fronts. And then at pick 103, I came back around and I got another Senior Bowl guy, somebody who stood out to me. Tight ends, there weren't a ton of, standout players at the Senior Bowl specifically. Justin Jolie from NC State, he was cool. Dom and I got to interview with him. Sam Roush, obviously, who we're talking about now, who's 6'5", 259 pounds. Dan Villari from Syracuse, who's also a Long Island native. The Jets put out a video about pizza toppings, and he's the one that's talking about the vodka pizza with the mozzarella. It's my fake Italian accent is so horrible, but you could tell this dude was like straight out of Long Island. So it's like Jeremy Ruckert on steroids, not literally on steroids, but in terms of like being native to the area, that heavy Italian. So Dan Villari was another tight end there. And really, like, none of them were really sticking out to me. I believe Daquan Wright and Michael Trigg were early invitees to the Senior Bowl. They would be, fine options at pick 103 as well. I don't believe Trigg was on the board, and maybe Daquan Wright wasn't either. So I went with Sam Roush, and you also pair him up now with Frank Reich, Thomas Merkel, and whoever the third hire was from Stanford, who I'm blanking on. Give me 1 second. Oh, Matthew Sargent. Yes. So now you have 3 former Stanford employees or coaches that have worked with Sam Roush, or at least on that side of the ball. So that's why I went with Roush at pick 103. Lou B, what's up, man? I appreciate you, Big Lou. We're talking about Long Island, and this guy comes in and says, "Go Jets." I appreciate you, Lou, for checking this out. So yeah, give me your thoughts on this mock draft. Give Eric some props in the chat, and I'll let him know that you guys love his mock draft template graphic that he made up for me. Super appreciative of him. I saw a couple comments in here. Oscar says Leone would be an outstanding replacement for AVT. Absolutely. And I'm always going to favor the trenches, guys. Like, if we have a question mark at one spot on the offensive or defensive line, I'm going to try to fill that need as quickly as possible. And Vega Luane definitely fills that need well. I think he's the consensus interior offensive lineman 1. So, yeah. Johnny Boy, I am so out on Diego Pavia, it's not even funny. It is a for sure no. When your measurables are smaller than me, come on. I'm like 5'10 and a quarter, 193 pounds if I'm being nice to myself. And Diego Pavia was like 5'9 and a quarter and super small. I think he was like 186 pounds. So, yeah, I'm fully out on Diego Pavia. Yeah, Diego Pavia, 5'9 and 7/8, 198 pounds. So, and you could tell he was struggling to throw over the offensive line in Mobile. He had some good passes for sure, but no, I'm firmly out on Diego Pavia. He didn't even need to reject me and Dom for an interview for me to say I was completely out. Thank you, Oscar. Hunter and McWarren are slam dunks. Absolutely. And again, they might not be there in the second round, but they were in that specific mock draft. So I kind of took advantage of it and cheesed the mock draft a little bit. But again, we're not, I'm not getting Ruben Bain at pick 103, right? Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not cheesing it that hard. So I followed the mock draft. Those were the guys that were there. I did a blend of need plus BPA. That's kind of how you get the pick of Luane. That's certainly how you get a safety at 33. So it was a blended approach. I've done the stick and pick based on need. I've done the trade up method based on need. Now we're doing a blend of need / BPA, and then we'll do some full BPAs, right? Where you get like a Caleb Downs at pick 2 and everybody loses their minds. So Oscar, you know how funny that would be if the Jets actually did have a Michael Trigg? I'm not sure. I don't know the history of our tight ends that well. Let me see. It does not look like it based on this quick search. Maybe there's another guy with a similar name that you're thinking of. Incel Allen says if the Jets are switching to 3-4, then DT is less priority. Well, I hope I'm always priority for you, Incel. You can draft oversized NT later in the draft, focus on linebackers. Yeah, so I agree with that last part for sure. but still make me a priority. Nose tackle later in the draft, focus on linebackers. Absolutely. I can see this, being a strategy because you are going to need more linebackers on the field in a 3-4 than a 4-3. So, and their roles would change too. So I can certainly see that. Johnny Boy, I would have extended him yesterday. Now, the second he said that he's not retiring, I think the Jets started putting in motion, trying to get him back. It's probably going to be on a 1-year deal, maybe slightly, I guess, close to average. Whatever a kicker makes is average. I don't think they're going to like overpay Nick Folk for one season. It is going to be interesting, though, with kickers specifically in the draft. And I'm not saying for the Jets, but at what point, because of the new rule changes with kicker, do you decide we're going to take a 5th-round swing or a 4th-round swing on a kicker? Because we just saw the record broke twice by Cam Little, right? He hit a 67-yarder and then a 68-yarder this past season. So kickers might become more valuable in the draft. Boss Girl says, DT, if you were doing a mock with trades, would you try to trade down a bit from 33, get extra capital, and grab a different safety? Yes. I don't know if I would grab Thieneman or Halsey. Not saying I dislike them as players, but you're probably going to be in that range of 33 for Thieneman and probably Halsey as well, like maybe 44 to 50 for Halsey. So I would trade down from 33, get a pick between 44 and 103, like maybe in the 70s or 80s, right in that mid-3rd round range. And then I would definitely go after like a Kamari Ramsey, a Bud Clark, a Michael Taft. I would get one of those safeties for sure. I wouldn't necessarily force the issue at high 30s with the safety pick specifically. But yeah, that's definitely on my like bingo card for the Jets. It's trading up from 16 and trading back from 33. Those are two things not mutually exclusive, but that would not surprise me with the Jets draft. Although if you are going to trade up from 16, it probably raises the likelihood of trading back from 33 because you probably gave up maybe 44 with 16 in a trade up, depending on how high you want to go. So yeah, I would definitely do this. Welcome to something. Yes and no. Yes and no. JD Surf City, I don't think he says not sure Pavia even gets drafted. Yeah, I mean, unless Joe Beningo is running somebody's war room, he's going to be drafted. I don't think so either. Like I don't see it with him as a prospect. I get it. He was highly productive at Vanderbilt, one of the better SEC quarterbacks in the league last year, but I don't really see it. Will says, everyone have a great day. It's a solid episode. Go Jets. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We are hitting the hour and 15 mark. I'm really trying not to go over an hour and 30 with these videos that are live. So I will close up shop shortly here. I know I have a couple more comments, including from our resident South Carolina, Charleston Jets Rube says, midday DT. What's up, my smoke and debate brother? Yeah, I literally got home from work, took a shower, ate my lunch, saw the pop-up of the notification of the Jets finalizing their coaching staff. I said, cool, let me look at this offensive coaching staff. The second, Rube, when I saw Bill Musgrave's name on that list, I said, I got to do a live show. I was like, I was going to go record a video anyway about the offensive staff hires, but once I saw Musgrave, I said, absolutely, we have to do a live show. So I'm glad you could check it out midday. I know sometimes the later episodes you're usually busy for, so appreciate you tuning in. It's a great day. It's a great day in South Carolina, dude. You're probably chilling shirtless on the balcony doing the smoke and debate. We'll have to catch up soon and have a repeat performance of Tampa Bay. Charleston comes back. I want Tate even at 2 if we have to. Yeah, I would take Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate as a wide receiver at number 2. I don't think I would do it with Jordan Tyson, just given the injury history, but talent alone merits you can take Jordan Tyson at 2. But yeah, I would go Tate or Mekhi Lemon at 2 and not think twice, especially in this draft class. Sean Gleason says, what do you think about the Jets raising their season ticket prices this year? My season tickets have gone up the past 5. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I've never been and probably never will be a season ticket holder. I don't go to a ton of games. I'm not the biggest fan of watching from the stadium, especially I want to sit close. And then I feel like the closer you are, the less you see at a football game sometimes. So I feel bad for all the season ticket holders that are, persevering through this BS that Woody Johnson keeps putting on. And the only thing I can say is I hope that very soon the payoff is worth it, because you guys deserve to go and watch a very good product on Sundays. If I waste 3 hours in my living room, sitting there, eating chips, getting fat, smoking bowls, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But for you guys to get up early in the morning, go to the tailgates, get there for 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning for a 1 o'clock kickoff, and then you're sitting in all that traffic going home, and you're not getting back home till 6 o'clock at night when the game ends at 4:15. That's a tough pill to swallow. And I feel bad for all the season ticket holders. I'm very glad that the season ticket holders are speaking up a lot more within the past year and a half, because the play on the field does not warrant any percent increase in season ticket prices. I believe is it the Rangers or the Knicks? Somebody was saying that they only raise the prices when they make the playoffs. And that's quite frankly how it should be. The prices should be, adjusted for inflation over the past 15 seasons, of course, but golly, it's just crazy what they're asking for these games now. Incel, I can't believe, I hope he didn't say that. Of all the dumb things Joe Beningo said, that might be the dumbest one. Oh my gosh. Oh, I hope he didn't say that. And I hope if he did say that, it was a long time ago and he reverted course. Kyle, that's true. Oh, Diego Pavia, backup to Cam Ward, competition in the offseason. Charleston loves the Musgrave hire. Absolutely. One of my favorites. Marcelo, it's a great day in South Carolina. Yeah, absolutely. I've said it before, between Christmas and Senior Bowl or Super Bowl, that's the only time that I don't wear shorts to work. I work in construction, so I do half inside, half outside. We cut on saws outside, and we're constantly running in and out. And people that live down here, they keep their house at 72 degrees for no reason. So you're sweating inside and then you go outside in the cold. I wore shorts today and I was sweating my ass off in 70-degree weather. So I'm so happy that we're back in shorts weather. We'll probably get a couple more days of cold, but this would be great. Incel. Maybe Joe B can convince Salah to give us a second for Jermaine. That'd be awesome. Or even Will McDonald, take a second for Will McDonald. Yeah, absolutely. And then you draft an edge at 2. You have 16, 33, probably 36 is where the Titans are picking, because they're picking 4 in the first round. So it's either 36 or 37. And you still have 44. Absolutely. All right, 2 more questions here. I see a super chat as well. Johnny Boy says, question for DT. ISU put me on the wide receiver from Illinois State, and I like him. What are your thoughts? Dude, you guys are coming out with some real deep cuts. Illinois State. No, I have no knowledge of this guy. Let me look him up real quick for you so I can give you at least some notes on him. Daniel Sobkowski. 6'3", 205. He's a senior. 2,400 career yards heading into his final season. 22 career touchdowns. So a hyper-productive player. I don't know where they have him ranked in terms of big board or stuff like that, but rounds 5 through 7, come on down. Give me the small school guys that are hyper-productive in college. I'll absolutely take that. All right, one more from Boss Girl, and then we'll get to the super chat. DT, I'd rather sign wide receiver 2 in free agency Yeah, Dobbs is my guy. You can convince me with some of the other guys too, but definitely Romeo Dobbs. So not pressure to take wide receiver in the first 2 rounds and can allocate first-round draft capital in 2027 with greater wide receiver options. Yeah, I'm cool with that. I love Romeo Dobbs, and ever since I saw him at Senior Bowl 3 years ago, the Packers drafted him, and I said he was better than Christian Watson. I still stand on that, and I would love him with the Jets. I think the only thing that I knock him for is his Guardian cap looks absolutely goofy on his head, but hey, protect your brain. All right, we had a $5 super chat from T Rivera. DT, keep up the good work. What about taking a flyer on Drew Aller in the later rounds because his QB class is weak? Yeah, we kind of touched on this earlier. Thank you so much for the super chat. I said I would rather just take the higher end swing of like a Ty Simpson in round 2 than a Drew Aller in round 5 or 6, because knowing how the Jets operate, Drew Aller would play games for the Jets in 2026, and I just don't want that, unfortunately. We saw what happened with Brady Cook this year, and I feel like it'd be of that similar mold. We would just be praying that we make it through these games and don't get blown out 63-0. So ultimately, could I see it? Yes. Would I like it a lot? No, I'd rather just take the swing at Simpson, or even a Garrett Nussmeier at 44, which is a complete reach in my opinion. All right. I think we're done here. No more super chats in waiting, and all of your questions, it looks like, have been answered. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. We're at the hour 20 mark. If you have not liked the video already, please do so and consider subscribing to the channel. We are approaching 1,600, on the road to 2K subs, as you see down here in the corner. Still trying to figure out a cool giveaway for you guys once we hit the 2,000 mark. And as promised, we will certainly be doing a call-in show. I think I'm going to set it up for right before free agency. We're going to do a call-in show, and then we're going to do a call-in show right before the draft. So we'll get free agency calls, and then we'll get draft-related calls from you guys, because I definitely want to have your opinions brought to the channel more, and get some of you guys involved in the live streams as well, because I feel like that's going to be a fun little wrinkle that we have not tried yet on the channel. All right, last one from Kyle. I want to move to the Hilton Head area. Kyle, if you do, I will come visit all the time, and I will play golf all over Hilton Head. They look like such great courses over there. Lou B says I'll call in for sure. Absolutely. So we definitely will have to do it. Boss Girl, great info and insights. I certainly appreciate you all for tuning in. One more time, like the video, subscribe if you're new. DT signing out, saying enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I'll be back on the feed with some more pre-recorded stuff as we get more hires, and another draft talk with DT is in the works. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. Catch you next time. Let's go Jets.